This is my computer. Like, really, this is my own personal computer. And the best thing about that is that my computer is in this table. Everything is here. But that wasn't always the case. You see, in 1822, Charles Babbage created something that most people would call the first computer. But Charles Babbage didn't really create the first computer. Somebody else did. And that's what we're actually gonna cover today. Who made the first computer and how really computers became mainstream. I'm Dennis and you're watching Back in Time. So our search for the first computer actually needs to go back to the ancient Greeks, and to be more specific, back to close 150 BC. But now you're probably asking, how was the computer actually named? Well, it was named the Antikythera mechanism, and that's because the computer was found in the Antikythera island of Greece in 1901. But what did the machine so ahead of its time really did? Well, to start off, it found astronomical positions in the stars and also served when eclipses were about to happen. It was also used as a calendar and could help everyone remember those 4 years that remaining for the Olympic Games. So as you can imagine, this machine was helpful, really helpful for everyone at this period of times. As you can imagine, machines like those ones that we mentioned before were not mainstream, like at all, but it took the world a lot more time to create something that would become actually mainstream in the whole public. Everyone was about to use a computer. And it actually took until 1962 that it first became the name personal computer. So we have a long way to go until we get there. So in 1936, Alan Turing created the machine that would be later called the Turing machine. And what the machine was actually capable of was to compute everything that was computable. And that's exactly what he did. So his idea is mainly focused on the computers that we have today. So a couple of years into the future, in 1946, two professors in Transylvania created the electronic numerical integrator and also a calculator that would later be called the ENIAC. This was the grandfather of the computer that we know today. But there's one big difference. The size. It's a massive difference because the computer that I'm talking to you right now was 20 by 40 feet tall. It was insanely tall. So computers were massive back then, but as we all know, this is not going to be the case forever. But to get to the point of today, some things needed to be done first. And that's exactly what happened in 1947. So 3 guys in Bell Laboratories created the first ever transistor. But they also found a way to create an electric switch with solid materials and no need for vacuum. So now that's probably the time that most of my subscribers are interested in, which was the first programming language ever made. And it was actually made in 1953 and it's called the COBOL language. So a couple of years into the future, Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce created the now known as the computer chip. And in 2000, Jack Kilby got awarded with the Nobel Prize in Physics. But as of now, we haven't seen any computer that would really remind us of the computers that we're using today. But that would change completely in 1964 when Douglas Engelbart created the first computer with a mouse and a GUI, a graphical user interface. His creation would mark a big step forward in the evolution of the computers and also be a lot more accessible to the general public. Before his achievement, the only thing that you could do was actually create some code and do some mathematical problems, and also, if you were lucky, play in the game made out of dashes and dots. In the 1970s, a lot of things happened. So to start with, in 1970, the C programming language was out, and also Intel announced their new dynamic random access memory that would be later called the DRAM. In 1971, a leading IBM team of engineers invented the floppy disk that would allow data to be shared among other computers. In 1975, Paul Allen and Bill Gates, the Bill Gates that you know, offered to create software for a company in the new basic programming language. And after their success, they created, you guessed it, Microsoft. In the 1980s, a lot of technological improvements occurred. So to begin with, in 1981, the first IBM personal computer was created. It was named Acorn and it used all of the hardware that we mentioned before. It also had the Microsoft MS-DOS operating system, and it was the first time ever that we used the term PC, meaning personal computer. In 1983, Apple introduced the Macintosh, that most of you probably know already, but if you don't, the Macintosh used a GUI, a graphical user interface, and also drop-down menus and icons. In 1985, Microsoft introduced Windows, and also the first ever .com domain name was registered. In 1990, a researcher at CERN, the CERN that you know, that they're trying to figure out how the universe was made. So a researcher out of CERN created the language called HTML that would mark a rise to the World Wide Web. Getting closer to the 21st century, and to be more specific, in 1994, PCs are becoming gaming machines. In 1999, Wi-Fi becomes more mainstream to the public, and that's because you could connect to the Wi-Fi without any wires. Finally, in 2003, the first ever 64-bit processor was out to the market. And that makes me think, if all of that happened in only 30 or 40 years, what is about to happen in the next 40 years? Are you still here? If you are, I just want to say a big thanks to you for supporting me. You know, watching a whole video on YouTube helps the creator a lot. But if you want to help me even more, you could press that like button and also subscribe to my channel. I'm the Tech Teen, and you will see me in the next episode of Back in Time.